Hello YouTube! Happy Amelia Earhart Day. She was born on July 24th, 1897, and so every year on July 24th it's her day. And so what better way than to celebrate with a hyperspeed build and to talk about this set. I really love this set as a free with purchase set. Totally cool. It almost begs for more though, almost like an ideas set. The booklet had some really interesting information about Amelia Earhart, but had it been a full-blown ideas set, there would have been a lot more information. And so I'm going to share some of that as we watch this build. So in 1922, she had the record for a woman with the highest altitude of 14,000 feet. So already as a young woman, she was setting records and trying new things. She actually crossed the Atlantic twice. So in the book, it talks about her, solo flight in 1932. But before that, in 1928, she was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic as a passenger. And so that really is what got her excited about trying the solo trip. In 1929 and 1930, she nailed some speed records for flying. And then, the epic 1932 solo flight across the Atlantic is really what brought her fame. What blew my mind about the book is that they actually omitted some really important other things. So, for example, same year that she flew across the Atlantic, she flew non-stop across the United States. It was a trip between Los Angeles and Newark, New Jersey. So also the first woman to fly solo across the U.S. So that was pretty epic. So 1935 was a busy year for Amelia Earhart. She was the first person, not just the first woman, but first person to fly solo from Hawaii to the U.S. mainland. She landed in Oakland. And that year was actually really busy for her because she also set a speed record between Mexico City and Washington, D.C. And she was the first person to fly solo from Mexico City to Newark, New Jersey. So 1935 was another amazing year for her. So just some amazing accomplishments that she had. Now, the really important piece that was missing from that booklet, and I think others would agree, is that she disappeared without a trace, and it's easily one of the most unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. She was on a trip. Well, let me start by saying that she wanted to fly around the world, and in 1937 she took off from Hawaii and crashed on takeoff. And so the plane was brought to California and was repaired, and then they tried again, and she left and flew all the way from US mainland to Papua New Guinea, or New Guinea at the time, and fueled up and then took off. And the next refueling stop was supposed to be Howland Island, a little tiny 2-mile long island in the Pacific Ocean, and she never made it. So there were some radio transmissions and some things, but they never found out what happened to her, and she just disappeared. She wasn't alone on that trip either. She had a co-pilot or a navigator on the trip with her, and so they both disappeared. So that's a hugely important piece to leave out of the booklet, but again, still love the set. The booklet also didn't really talk too much about the airplane. The Vega was introduced by Lockheed in 1927, and this is the plane that I'm building that took her across the Atlantic. A few years later, she ended up selling the plane, and it's actually now in the Smithsonian. So if you go to Washington, D.C., you can see it in the museum. But the plane itself is really cool. It was a really a great plane at the time for setting speed records and distance records. It has a cantilevered, what's called a cantilevered wing, and it's mainly made out of spruce, and the fuselage was a spruce veneer. So it's a molded shell without internal bracing. So nowadays, I think if you were to compare it to something, it would be like a molded monocoque or shell of a high performance car, right? But they were doing it with wood with these airplanes, and it didn't have internal bracing. And the reason for that was it was very strong, but it was very light. And so that really helped with the speed and the distance. Now this red plane, Amelia called her little red bus. And she actually had an accident in it at one point. She kind of nose-overed on the runway and had it repaired, and then also had it modified before she tried the transatlantic trip, so that it could be strengthened and carry extra fuel tanks. There were multiple types of compasses also on the plane, and a more powerful engine was installed at that time. Alright, so that's a little bit more about Amelia Earhart, and we're coming to the close on this build. So love this set. I could see it being actually a set for sale, like an ideas set, and maybe like an aeronautics, champions of aeronautics or something like that, champions of aviation, because there's so many people that you could feature and have little airplanes with, whether it's Charles Lindbergh or Tuskegee Airmen. A lot of people who had first, obviously the Wright brothers. That would be pretty cool. So free with purchase. Loved it. I'd even pay for it. So that's my assessment of this set. Pretty cool, and I really enjoyed building this on Amelia Earhart Day. So hopefully you've stuck around through this whole thing, and I appreciate it. Have a great day, and we'll see you around the bricks. Bye.